Hey YouTube. So I have another new concept for a video here. This is basically my thoughts on a specific note. Now I know Mark had done one or two videos similar to this where he looked into a specific note. I know he did one on vetiver. But I chose to do this specifically on rose for a couple of reasons. Most importantly, this is a note that is commonly misunderstood by a lot of general fragrance shoppers. And I think this video is really mostly targeted to those who might be a little bit newer to the fragrance game, may not have a lot of experience with a lot of different notes, and may hear the word rose in a fragrance and immediately write it off because they think it's too feminine or they think it's just not for them. Without actually trying it, because that's not the case. It is a flower, obviously, and it does have feminine tendencies, but when you blend it correctly and you put other things around it, you can really add some nice masculinity to it, and you can find yourself a really nice fragrance. So what I've done here is that these are all of the fragrances that I have that have some element of rose in them, and I've divided them up into three fairly distinct categories here, which I think is the easiest way to approach this. Now, first we have in the back here, these are the three designers that I have that contain rose. We have Loud from Tommy Hilfiger, 1 Million from Paco Rabanne, and then a sample of Rock Volume 1 from John Varvatos. In front, we have rose oud combinations. These are all niche. We have Montal's Black Oud. We have oud flowers from Montal, oud rose petals, Attar, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. All four of those are Montals. This is New York Oud from Bond, and then finally Rose Oud by Kilian. Now the back left corner here, these are a little bit less conventional uses of rose. They don't really necessarily fit into one category. Again, all niche. This is Noir de Noir from Tom Ford, Ombre Nuit from Dior, Lyric Man from Amouage, West Side from Bond, and Love from By Kilian. Now, I'm going to go through these one by one and make a few comments about each. So let's start with the designers here. Rose is not a commonly used note in designer fragrances, mostly because men, as I said, generic, we'll call them Macy's shoppers, quote unquote, will hear that, oh, this has rose in it, I don't want it. That's too feminine, that's gonna, I don't want to smell like a girl. That's not for me. I'm not even going to try it. So it really is not something that you're going to find in a lot of men's fragrances, specifically in the States. If you take a look at these three, really of the three here, 1 Million is the only one that has a widespread release, a permanent widespread release in the United States. Loud never really came over here. It's not been widely available in any department stores. Rock Volume 1 was a limited edition from John Varvatos, and while there seems to be a little bit of a cult following for it, it does fetch some somewhat high prices on eBay, but really is not something that it's not something that got a lot of hype, and it didn't seem to be a very big seller for them. So for designers, a lot of the companies don't think that it's a big moneymaker for them because too many people are going to be turned off by it. Frankly, at least where I live in Boston, obviously from the background there, even 1 Million is not, it's not something I smell a lot. I don't really smell it on a lot of people. I don't smell it out all the time. It is at every Sephora now. It is at every Macy's. So it's very easily obtainable. But I don't smell it. I go out to a club, go out to a bar. It's not there. There's certainly the other ones. You get the Le Mans, you get the Aqua de Jo's. 1 Million is, at least from my experiences, not in that category. So a lot of these mainstream releases, these companies, they don't generally tend to use rose because they don't think that it's a money-making proposition for them. And for a designer, Really, for most designer companies, it's all about the bottom line. Are they going to make money off of it? Of course, they're all businesses, but they're not really out to blaze too many trails. I mean, these three you have in front of you, they don't really... Well, I'm not going to get into that here. It's the wrong video for that. So, I mean, these are the only three designer roses that I have. There really aren't that many others. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of too many that are strictly designer releases that feature rose in any prominent way. So, if you're looking for a designer rose, your options are very limited, which is the downside of rose. If you want to find something that's good, that's quality, that you're going to like, you're probably going to have to look into the niche realm, which means you're going to have to spend more money. So, that is that. Now, moving along. If you're a guy who wants to try to get into rose, but you want to try and avoid the overly flowery, feminine aspect of it, the rose oud combination here is an interesting way to try and get around that, because the oud can add a nice splash of masculinity to the rose that can offset the overly flowery aspect of it. However, there are some problems with the rose oud combination, the first of which is, again, as I said, most likely you're going to have to go into the niche realm. Not only is rose not a very commonly used note in designers, oud is really not commonly used by designers, both because of price. Oud generally is a very highly priced ingredient to source, and again, not very common to an average fragrance shopper, a Macy's shopper. It's not one that's going to be very widely accepted. And again, not a moneymaker. It's the bottom line here. And also, some of these rose ouds can be very redundant. You know, you take a look at these four Montals here: black oud, oud flowers, oud rose petals, ottar. They're very, very similar. You know, that is a little bit specific to Montal. They get some crap because a lot of people say they release too many fragrances and they're just redundant releases. I'm new to the house, but from my brief experience, I tend to agree with that. If you have one of these four, you don't really need the other three. They're not very different. Maybe oud flowers is a slight exception, but again, it can be a little bit redundant. Something like a New York oud, again, it gets often compared to rose oud. There's a little bit more to it. It's a very complex fragrance. I would put rose oud from Kilian as a slight exception because it is a little bit different. It does have a slightly different rose note. It's not a sharp oud. It's more smooth. The rose is a lot more smooth. It's a very red rose. So if you want the rose oud combination, give rose oud a shot. Of course, the downside there is the extremely high price, $390, $395 for 50 milliliters. That's pushing it. That's really pushing it. But you can get the refill bottles a little bit cheaper, try for a sample here or there. Either way. So again, rose oud, if you're looking for a slightly more masculine combination, it's something to consider. Oud's not for everybody. It really isn't. It can be a very off-putting note, but if you like it, it can really work for you. Now, getting into the third category here, the other uses of rose, kind of the other category, so to speak. These would be for someone who wants a less conventional use of rose. Now, let me quickly say here, I know some people may be asking, why isn't Noir de Noir with the ouds? I don't get any oud in this at all. I know some people say they do. I never once have gotten any oud. If it is the weakest, lightest oud I've ever smelled, because I don't get it. That is strictly for me. Black rose, black truffle, some booze in the background, some light woods, a little bit of amber. I don't get any oud. Sorry. So, now with these you have, this is a different way to approach rose. You have some that are kind of a boozy, slightly woody combination. Obviously Noir de Noir is a very boozy rose. Ombre Nuit mixes the amber with it with a little bit of light woods. Something like a West Side, which is also a boozy rose, but in a more of a, it has a very high-priced wine vibe to it. It'll mix with some sandalwood. And then a couple of the others here. You have Lyric Man and you have Love by Killian. And these are more of a sweet and spicy rose combination. Lyric is a little bit like 1 Million. It's a much more refined, a little bit more spicy scent. It doesn't have that, bubblegum sweetness of 1 Million, but they do share some similarities. Love is heavy sweetness. It's a niche quality sweetness. It's not synthetic. It's not, again, 1 Million, very bubblegum kind of scent. Love is very sugary marshmallow. And the rose isn't very prominent, but it's there. You can definitely smell it. This one has incredible longevity, by the way. Love. I put this on to test it out one night. I smelled it more than 24 hours later. And I was wearing something else at the time, the next day. I still got whiffs of this, which is very unusual for me to have something last that long. It was faint by 24 hours, but that it was even there 24 hours later, that says something. So both of these, very good longevity from this category here. Generally, you get that with these high concentrations, with the woods, with heavy woods, with very thick scent. Get good longevity with it. So really the bottom line with this rose is you really need to find what works for you. There's different ways that you can approach this. There's different ways or different types of rose that you can find. You have the dark roses like Noir de Noir. You have a lighter rose like Ombre Nuit. You have a very deep red rose like a Lyric Man or 1 Million. You have the oud combinations. You need to find what works for you. Because you really, if you do your research and you spend some time looking into these and you find something that works for you, you really can find something that's very unique and very attention-getting, since a lot of guys don't wear rose-based fragrances. The Macy's shoppers of the world, they, in large quantities, don't go to the roses. So if you're able to find something, you can really carve out a nice niche for yourself. No pun intended there. And it can really give you something that's very unique, very attention-getting, and it's a very daring scent. You hear a lot of times, a lot of these companies use words to describe their fragrances like be daring, be unexpected, when in reality they're not, because they're generally combinations of very frequently used ingredients. That's not the case with rose. Sure, for a woman's fragrance, rose is very common, very popular. For a man, it is unexpected because it's not it's not something that you smell on a man every day. Sure, you smell the light woods, you smell the Aqua de Joes of the world, you smell the Lamals, you smell the Freshes, the Chromes of this, of that. Guys don't wear rose-based fragrances. It's very uncommon. So you can find something that's unexpected. You can find something that's daring, that's very different, very unique. If you take the time to look into it, if you allow yourself to accept the fact that it's a little bit different, and inevitably somebody probably won't like it. Somebody will probably think that it's too feminine. Maybe somebody won't like the oud. But you can say that about any fragrance practically. If you're searching for something that's just going to please everybody, then don't go for this. You're not going to find anything here that's going to please everybody. Go buy Chrome. That's I generally don't recommend wearing a fragrance that's going to please everybody, because in general, in the end, you're not going to please yourself, because it's going to be very bland, very boring, too easy, too common, and I would advise against that. So just because somebody's not going to like it, that's not a reason to not buy something like this. So don't let that turn you off. Rose can be a really good way to find a great signature scent that works for you, is very unique, high quality, and very different. So let me know if you like this little concept here. I don't know if I'm going to do any more. I have some other notes in mind, but rose was the one that I really wanted to do. If this is helpful, let me know. I can do some more of these. I do have enough fragrances that I can find some more common notes and see what I can put together. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks.